Hello YouTube, welcome to the shop. I restored my old Powermatic 90. So the scheme of this lathe is a little bit different than what most other Powermatic 90s of this age are. This, I believe, was made between 1959 and 1960. And those years they didn't have the gray color, they had green. It was the what I call the ugly pea green. And no means to offend any of you Powermatic lovers, but I like the gray color. So I went with Rust-Oleum hammered silver or hammered gray, I don't remember exactly. And then I detailed it in black. So some of the letters around the headstock and around the sides. Now one thing different on the paint scheme that's different than the Powermatics of this era is that they did not have any stripes on them. I believe that was 1970s-ish and up. It was whenever they introduced the black stripes. So I introduced the black stripes on this, on both sides. They only used to put it on the right side of the lathe, and I introduced it on the left as well. I think that ties it in a lot better, makes it look a lot nicer. Now the stripes of that era were white with the pea green, or sometimes the darker green. Almost everything works the way it should. I've went and oiled and lubricated just about everything, and I've seen some guys get to their tailstocks to the point where you can take it and you can just fling it. I don't have that ability yet, but I'm sure with wear, I will. There's a few spots I can do that, but it's only backing the quill back. I also have a one-way live center for this. This did not come with the original wrench. I had a homemade wrench for it, and I went and found one on eBay and bought it for this. The threads, I need to get a new thread for this. They're a little bit smashed, and by smashed I mean there's almost no thread left. But this lathe came from a school, and you can kind of expect that. Tool rest functions the way it should. I got it working. It locks down real solid. I just shook the entire lathe just because of how well this thing locks. And I'm pretty happy with the way everything has turned out. One thing you might have noticed different about this lathe is I built this control unit. And this houses all the electronics, almost all the electronics. I have a variable frequency drive on this that runs the motor. And to start it, you just push the first start button. And you can probably hear the fan running. Now this turns on this LED and the RPM gauge. Now the reason I have these indicators is the green LED tells me that the variable frequency drive is on. Now the lathe itself is not running, but the drive is. I want to be able to see that this is on without having to go into the cabinet. I also have a forward and reversing switch that toggles between the different directions. And this one starts the lathe. I have a potentiometer to adjust the speed. And to turn off the drive unit, you just hit the stop button. You can see the LED goes off. In a couple seconds, the RPM gauge will go off. You probably noticed that the RPM gauge was not reading anything, and it wasn't. I do not have that hooked up yet either. Mainly because the cord that I have is not long enough. I need to extend the wiring on it. Here is the actual drive unit. Whenever I hit the first start button, you can hear the fans come on and the LEDs light up. This is a cheap Chinese one I found on eBay. It wasn't terribly expensive. If I recall correctly, like 120 bucks. I could be wrong. This was the sensor I was talking about earlier. This reference is off of a magnet on one of the wheels. So here is the motor. This is not the original motor. This is a 3 horsepower, 3-phase motor. It runs at, I believe, 3600 RPM. I made a custom mounting bracket out of bed frame, you can see here, and it bolts into the existing motor mount holes. Now obviously this is on the outside of the lathe. The original motor went on the inside of the lathe, but this motor being so large, it was not able to fit between the bedways. This motor came off of a dust collector I had previously bought. So here are the pulleys. This lower pulley is where it originally was, and I'm using the original belt, but I added the jack shaft. This is where the motor originally was, and I added a jack shaft to transfer the motion from the motor back and then up through this pulley. The variable frequency drive in conjunction with the Reeves drive function perfectly. I have a bearing here, and I have a bearing on the inside that you cannot see. This is a 5/8 inch shaft with greasable bearings. This is also a custom mounting bracket. I'm going to change this and make it a little bit prettier. This was not its original intention in this location. Well, I'll give you guys a walk around of the tailstock and the whole lathe. I have about 3 12-hour days invested in just in the paint job alone. That is the old motor. It's a 1 horsepower 3-phase motor. Don't know if I'll be using that again, but all new wiring. I didn't use any of the original wiring or any of the original components. This is the belt guard. I'm going to remake that either out of wood, or I'm going to see if I can find a way to cast aluminum. You can see some of the detailings up here. Faceplate's all stainless steel hardware. And all the bolts for the motor are stainless as well. You probably saw earlier that this hand wheel wobbles. It's an aluminum. It wobbles very bad. But that's typical of these aluminum hand wheels. I have 3 of those and all of them do that. Pulleys are black, and I still need to paint these 2 pulleys for the motor. The whole inside and out of this lathe has been painted. I still need to put the knob that goes on the door here. Need to build the cover for the pulleys. Shorten this shaft. Buy a chuck for it. I've been looking at either a Vigmark or a Hurricane or One Way. Being that this lathe came from a school, I also got a ton of accessories, and I got 2 other banjos, some extra clamps. This is the original knob that I said I had to make a new one for. I blew that one out. Wrenches, and a whole bunch of faceplates. Those are the hand wheels on the left side. Little 4-inch faceplates, a couple 6-inch, and then a couple 8-inch, I believe. Whole bunch of tool rests in this cabinet. I purchased a new hand wheel for over here. Give you a look at the back side. All my wiring. Well, I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for subscribing. You guys have been great. I'm almost hitting up to 2,000 subscribers. I have more videos planned and more projects planned, but the hard part for me now is trying to find the time during the semesters. It's hard to find any time to breathe. I want to ask you guys to please subscribe, like me on Facebook, follow me on Google+, and stay tuned for the next video.